Stand by. We're live.
Thank you. This session of the Board of Zoning Appeals for the City of Richmond will now take place on September 22nd, 2020. Will they please call the roll, please?
Jeff Cook.
I'm here.
Gary Harlan Davis.
Here.
Aaron Roberts.
Here.
Sayward. Salazar. Joe Green.
Here. At this time, could we please all rise and
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the flag of the United States of America,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
under God,
liberty,
indivisible,
justice.
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now at this time, we'll have a reading or an approval for the minutes of the March 12th, 2020 meeting, and also we'll have an approval for the meeting that was scheduled for April the 9th of 2020. I'll first hear a motion for the minutes from the March meeting.
I'll make a motion we approve the minutes for March 12th, 2020.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the March minutes from the March 2020 meeting, all signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Those minutes are approved. I would hear a motion or conversation about the approval of the minutes from the April 9th, 2020 meeting.
Make a motion we approve April 9th, 2020 meeting minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the minutes from the April meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And with that, we've approved the minutes from both meetings, and we will now move to the proof of publication. Does anyone have that?
Yes, I have it, and I'm very happy to have it. We do have tonight a proof of publication. This notice was published in advance. It states the time, date, place, and the item on the agenda for tonight's hearing. This notice is in order to hold this public hearing, and I would ask the board to make a motion to accept proof of publication.
Move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the proof of publication, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we have approved the proof of publication, and now we will move on to new business. That would be BZA 2020. This would be the petition of Angela Wright as the owner and Ann Liebert as the agent, requesting an approval for a variance of use to allow a psychologist's office in a high-density single-family residential area R3 district at the location of 809 College Avenue. If the petitioner could please step forward and tell us a little bit about your petition.
Okay, based on the feedback from earlier, would it be best, I think I might take my mask down so we all be heard? I'm actually preparing something in writing, so I would be sure that once I was on the hot seat here, I would remember things that I wanted to cover. So I'll try to be relatively brief, but if you'll bear with me while I read this. Some of you already know who I am. I've met some of you, and for others, I haven't had the opportunity yet. But my name is Angela Wright, and I am a psychologist. I grew up here in Richmond, and I've had a private practice here as a psychologist since 2004. I was managing a larger practice with 2 other business partners until recently, and they've started transitioning into retirement. So I decided to sell our practice that we grew and simplified in this next stage of my career by opening a small solo practice. I'm really excited about the possibility of doing that at 809 College Avenue. I've tried not to get myself too attached to this location, but as you'll hear in what I've written here, I'm just really excited about the environment and the neighborhood. I've always loved the area, particularly that stretch of College Avenue. It's quiet and discreet, and it's well maintained and nestled in the trees. And I really want to be able to offer that setting to my patients, who are our community friends, families, and professionals. Aside from the appeal of the home and the neighborhood, it's also located ideally for several reasons. It's close to where my children attend school, where many of my patients live and work and attend school themselves. The property itself has a layout that's conducive to my practice. I understand that some of the reasons that I'm attracted to the property are some of the same reasons that the surrounding community wants so much to protect and preserve it. And so I want to offer whatever reassurance that I can that I have no intention of trying to change the aesthetics or the energy of the neighborhood. It's why I want to be there. It will be a well-maintained extension of my own home, and I will happily be a member of the neighborhood that takes the same pride, feels the same connection, and that looks out for one another in the same way one hopes any neighbor would. I don't require any structural changes to the home, and the only cue that it is a business would be a small and discreet sign that hangs near the door on the structure itself to let people know that they're in the right place. Appointments are a minimum of an hour long, and they're all by appointment only, so no unusual traffic should be created. I wish for a quiet and discreet business, and I truly believe that having this variance of use granted is a win-win for all involved. I've always practiced in a residential setting, and there's a long precedent of many of my colleagues doing the same here in our community. And I believe that I and they have had stable businesses that have served our community well over the years and show a history of caring for the homes and conducting their business in a way that does not negatively impact our neighbors or the neighborhood where we practice. To the board, I also wanted to have a chance to try and speak to the idea of hardship regarding my request. On the surface, it's difficult to articulate a case for hardship when you're only considering this particular home, my particular request, and it seems that I just prefer to have my practice in a residential setting, and that declining my request to do so would only create a minor inconvenience. So if you'll just bear with me for a moment, I would like to ask that we just sort of zoom the lens out of it and consider a bigger picture. So I'm a member of the community who provides a much needed and even in short supply service. And I think for most people it would seem reasonable, thoughtful, ethical to agree that people in the community should be able to access these services in a discreet, quiet, comfortable, home-like setting. However, the hardship comes in more in the reality of actually trying to secure and create such an environment for my business. So behind the scenes, maybe it would help to know that the journey, even to get here tonight, to be with you all, has been lengthy and time-consuming and costly. I first made an offer on this property 2 months ago. My practice has been trying to limp along in the time being, waiting for a new place to be able to flourish. But it's meant income loss. It's asked a tremendous amount of patience from the seller of this home, as she's agreed to wait while we follow these processes instead of selling to an easier and quicker buyer. Because of the time necessary to request this variance, we also did not want to delay the process of the purchase even further for the seller. And so we agreed to proceed with all of the other typical steps in the purchase of a property by arranging and paying for the necessary appraisal and inspections in the hope that we can proceed quickly to a sale if the variance is granted. But this was all at the risk that a variance would not be granted. And so I just ask that you consider that part of the equation, and that process would potentially be the case for property after property, on the search to find a residential setting where I can create that kind of business setting for patients that I'm hoping for. And that I hope other people can also agree is a reasonable vision and even an asset to our community. So I thank you for your time and your willingness to listen, and I'm sure there may be other questions and concerns. I'm not fully familiar with the process, but I'm hoping that there'll be an opportunity maybe to address some of those the community members may have too.
Thank you so much. I would now hear any questions that the board may have to the petitioner regarding the petition.
I have just a couple. The sign that you're going to place on is it going to be flat against the property, or is it going to be sticking out? Or?
Yeah, no, actually, and I brought a couple of examples of the types of things I'm looking at, which would be something that even a homeowner might have affixed actually to the door or just adjacent to the door.
Like the
so
dress
actually, yeah, absolutely.
And then, other than you, will there be anyone else there working?
No, there won't be any employees. I'm going to be trying to use an online practice management service.
Okay. And then, if I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, the driveway for that property is plenty for anything you would need as far as appointments or anything like that. Is that correct?
Yes. My own vehicle should be able to be parked in the carport, and it would allow still for 2 additional vehicles if necessary, even without using any street parking.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Are there any other questions to the petitioner at this time?
The board.
I do have a question in regards to how the business is going to be situated. So according to what we have here, you won't be residing at the residence, correct?
Correct.
So this will be a standalone business, and basically it'll be just a house that you close up and open up, much like a regular retail business or something along those lines.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, just from past, experience, because I have also been in a residential setting, even when I've been practicing before, there'll probably be a lot of sort of coming and going with my family, doing yard work, just like if we lived there, doing those sorts of caring for the property sorts of things. And also, this may be a good opening to mention too, that particularly with the nature of my business, we'll want good security and lighting and things like that. And so that may be good to be aware of also.
Okay. And I think Aaron already kind of answered my questions about parking and signage. Are there any other questions to the petitioner at this time from the board? Hearing none, thank you so much. We will now open the floor for public comment and public hearing. Anyone who would like to speak in favor of the current petition, if you could please state your name and your address and tell us why you'd like to speak in favor of the petition, please do so.
Favor up, Brett? Yep, step right up, please. Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great, yeah. Thank you. Just state the name and address, and then your comments, please. Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm Pat Foreman. My address is 815 College Avenue. I'm the next door neighbor to the south. And I'm probably one of the newer ones in the neighborhood. I've been there 3 years, but I grew up on the corner of Southwest E 3rd, and so this used to be my playground. I think there are a lot of advantages. And one of my big advantages is being in real estate for decades almost, but I would much rather see this go to a practice such as Angela is proposing than to a rental. It seems like it's harder now to get good rentals, especially long-term tenants that take care of the properties. A lot of the millennials just want to basically, I mean, I love millennials, I'm not saying against them, but rentals, they're just tended not to be as well kept as by owners. Which brings another point is that I think Angela will very well keep the property up. I mean, she has a business, she has every incentive to keep it well dressed and cut and attractive for everything. I also think if it were sold, it could be sold to a large family or a family with a lot of teenagers or barking dogs. This property is going to be quiet at night. There's not going to be any dogs barking or teenage parties or pool parties or ruckus in the neighborhood. And it's somewhat of a quiet neighborhood for the most part in this. And low traffic, of course, quiet at night. So as the neighbor, I'm totally in favor, but I know Angela, I took a couple of workshops at Pathways. They're the place where she works. She uses holistic and meditation, problem solving, visualization. So it's not a hard psychiatric practice that she has. She won't be having really weird people coming in. Is that right? So yeah, I feel very comfortable with her clientele that's trying to look through life, as we all are, I think, in these challenging times. I've spoken with my neighbor Louise Beatty, who's very much for this as well. She's 96 and lives on the house right next to the president's house, and sees no problem with it. Also, Rosemary Oliver, my neighbor on the south, did write something to the council, if I may read that, and I'll be glad to submit it for the record. And her concerns are this. She goes, is the business variance for the property to the new buyer only? In other words, would the variance continue with the property if it were sold again? That's kind of, I think, a concern of all of us here, that it would not necessarily become a standing long-term. So would there have to be another variance if someone wanted to continue this development? And would the variance allow the buyer such changes as adding a parking lot? I mean, I know there's been a discussion about, oh, it would be a concrete lawn, and it sounds like that's not going to happen. Or would there be large additions to the property? And I think I have got certainly that that's not going to happen with her private practice. And she also would like to see this written into the buyer's contract, if that could be possible or done, just to assure that that could be a long-term thing. And this is submitted by Rosemary Oppenheimer for the petition. So in speaking right next door, I'm totally in favor, but I'm totally comfortable with it and have absolutely no problems with this deal going through on behalf of Dr. Wright.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the current petition? If you could please give your name and address and let us know if you speak in favor of it.
Anyone else here for?
Hearing none, we will open the floor to anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the current petition. If you could please give your name and address and let us know why you're speaking in opposition of the current petition. Yes, sir. Could you give us your name and your address?
John Holzer, 914 College Avenue.
You can just sit right there if you like, since you're right there. You're straight in camera view. How about that, sir? Thank you. Go ahead.
Please continue.
First, I have a question from her opening statement. Did you say the appointments would be no more than an hour or
No less,
no less than an hour?
right? The minimum appointment time is.
And are these appointments at any time during the day or night?
No, they're typical business hours. I mean, to be on the safe side, between 8 and 6. But normally, especially with kids in school, the appointments are usually between 9 and 5.
Now, there's been mentions that this would be a nice, quiet business, which maybe it is, but it still adds cars and people to College Avenue. College Avenue isn't all that quiet a place. We have a family that does youth group work. And when their youth group meets at their house, you can hardly get around the circle that's to the top of College Avenue. And I know that I'm an older person, so I like to keep things sometimes the way it used to be. College Avenue on at least the west side used to have a lot of protected covenants. Yeah, covenant. But that's one. Earl wanted to keep it residential, and they wanted to keep it looking nice. I have a copy of that somewhere at my house, but I couldn't find it today. But like, you can only have, when Earl and the people who live there, they have like a homeowners association. And they had to meet once a year and decide things, or have meetings if there was something not going right. And I remember one of the things was that you cannot have more than one outbuilding. You only be a certain size, I believe. And then there was also something in there about fencing. If you add more people up there, and as it is, a few years ago when Norman's owned the house next to us, they tried to get the city to put a speed limit sign like 20 miles an hour around that circle. And the city wouldn't do it. And people go around that circle, including city trucks, road trucks, whatever. So it's not all that quiet street. And
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to the current petition, if you could please step forward, give your name and address.
Hi, my name is Jim Coons. My wife Kate and I both live at 820 College Avenue. And I think I'm going to begin with some questions that were on Rosemary Oatler's list. Can you explain to me what the variance would be and what is involved with that? I apologize for not knowing.
Are you asking what the petition is all about, essentially, or?
Yeah, what is involved in the variance? It is to make this a business, right? In a residential neighborhood. Is that correct?
Correct. What it is a variance to of use for the property as a home-based business. And I think what the variance actually is really implying is that the petitioner will not be residing at the home. So it wouldn't essentially be a home-based business. So that's kind of what we're discussing here.
Joe, can I add to that? I'm the Vanessa City Planner, so I'll clarify. A variance of use in this case is specific to a psychologist's office. So in the future, hypothetically, if Angela was granted this variance and purchased the property, she would hypothetically be able to sell to the next owner, and they would be able to use this variance of use specifically for a psychologist's office. The variance would run with the land until either the variance ends, is vacated, or unused for 12 consecutive months. Then it's done. So hypothetically, if Angela had it and purchased the house, she sold it to another buyer, and they did not use this variance of use for 12 months, it would be finished.
So the time limit would be as long as she had the variance, she could use the whole time she was there. And
In
if nobody
future
used it
owners-
after her, then in 12 months, it's gone.
The variance will run with the land regardless of owner, as long as it is still being used in that way, until it is abandoned for 12 months.
So
Then it's done.
So is it, my understanding, and correct me if you will, is that if she would decide to sell the property to another psychiatrist, regardless of what type of psychiatric business he was running or what type of patient he was seeing, he would still qualify for the purchase of that property, right? And that variance would remain as long as he was there, he or she was there.
I believe so. Kim, do you want to add anything?
I would probably interpret it that way, yes. If it's a psychiatrist's office, regardless of the type. Now, maybe the intensity would be a little bit of a problem as far as if you've got 4, 5, 6 psychiatrists in there. When the nature of this one is for one sole practitioner, that may be something, if the board is going to entertain approving this, it could be a commitment that it be a sole practitioner practice. And my interpretation would be that it would be a psychiatrist's office regardless of the type of clients. So that might also be something to look at if the board does find that the other main 4 or 5 criteria of the state code do apply. So if the board gets to that point, that would possibly be 2 written commitments to have the petitioner agree to, as far as the nature of the office and the nature of the business, whether it be a DBA or a sole private practice, sole practitioner.
Does that provide some clarity? Sure, you're right.
I guess the only other tag on that specific question as far as clarity, I'm still not clear that if another psychiatrist would open that there would be control over what type of patient he was seeing.
And so I think what Kim is saying, if there are no conditions put on a variance of use today at tonight's meeting that regulate that, then no, it would just be open to It'd be very broad.
Right,
Yeah.
very broad. Okay. I'm not good at this. My wife and I had moved into that neighborhood because it is a residential neighborhood. And I'm happy to say that we have raised teenagers in that neighborhood who the neighbors complained about driving their cars. And they had to learn from that. And they learned to respect their neighbors. We've also had several dogs that we've raised there. We currently have a dog. It's a delightful neighborhood to have a dog. One of the things that makes Kate, my wife, and I happy is that in the past few years, we've had younger families move in. And there's a certain satisfaction for Kate and I to be in our backyard or with our living room windows open and hear children playing. And I guarantee you, we hear kids playing. And we enjoy that. Another comment that I would like to make is that we thoroughly enjoy living next to the college. Our property backs up against the college. It's nice to see a steady traffic of Earlham students walking up and down College Avenue. There is housing for Earlham students just beyond College Avenue to the south, which we've always referred to as Brick City. So while we have students walking behind our house up to Brick City, or to the baseball diamond, or to the tennis courts, or just to the horse barns, we enjoy that. And so that there is some student traffic on bicycles or walking up and down College Avenue. So there is some traffic there from that, and we enjoy that. I think what I just want to stress is that we really like living in a residential neighborhood. I know the idea that the property could be sold to somebody as a rental property, that does come up. Certainly, I guarantee you, all of us would like to see somebody come in and maybe raise kids in that house and raise teenagers in that house. I guess my real point of view is that we enjoy it as a residential neighborhood. And I can't, for all the reasons that maybe Angela wants to move her practice there, those are all the reasons pretty much that my wife and I live there. You would think that because it is a cul-de-sac that there's not a lot of traffic, but there is traffic on that because a lot of people don't look at the sign at the bottom of the hill that says no outlet. And they think, oh, I'm going to go up to the ball diamond. And they charge up College Avenue only to find out that, you know, there's no way to get there. Thank you very much for your patience and for letting me be a little long.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Public hearing is still open. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to the current petition? If you could please step forward and give your name and address.
Hello, my name is Kathy Sweet, and I'm here with my husband, Scott. We live at 821 College Avenue, and we have been there for 26 years. And I think if we thought then that there would be a possibility that this street could become, one of the homes would be turned into a business, we probably wouldn't have bought the house. I mean, I could sit here and say everything Jim said. To me, it's a residential street. We love it there. I mean, in this COVID thing, we've been home the whole time, and we had Earl to walk in. And I understand what Angela's saying about the fact that that's what she wants to give her patients. And I don't mean to be cruel, but I mean, she could do the same thing possibly in her neighborhood in Hidden Valley. And I mean, why come to our neighborhood? My husband has grown up in that neighborhood on the southwest side, and he actually played and went to school with somebody who, I think it's Mrs. Geels that lives down the street, was his mother. And, you know, we have a lot of good memories from being on the street. And as far as the cul-de-sac, that big grassy circle area, it's great for the kids. Yeah, there is a lot of traffic that comes up and goes around. And, you know, having that sign up would be great to slow down. But what I'm saying is, it's a residential street. And I guess that's really what I want to stress. It's a residential street. And we just want to keep it that way. We love our street. We don't have any intentions of leaving Richmond. We have our burial plot paid for at Earlham College, so we're not going anywhere. And we just like our street, and we want to keep it residential.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Public hearing is still open. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to the current petition? If you could please step forward, give your name.
Hi, I'm Amber Willard. Me and my husband Brent live at 910 College Avenue.
Okay, please proceed.
I agree with all of my neighbors. I agree with Angela. The reason she wants to move her business into the neighborhood is the same reason that we like to live there. I have young children that like to ride their bike around the circle and play outside, and like the others have said, we do have some traffic that comes up there. It's not a totally dead neighborhood, but I would like to keep the traffic at a minimum. I don't want to add any other traffic to that. I've had some issues in the past where a group home that wasn't supposed to be zoned that way moved in across the street, and I've had group home members come into my home, which I had to call the police, and those people were removed from the home and placed into a psychiatric hospital. I know Angela says that her patients are just dealing with everyday life, and I totally respect that. I'm not saying that she has patients that would be that way, but we've already kind of had a negative, I guess, dealing with that kind of thing in the neighborhood, and I'm not really looking forward to having that again. I do think, you know, Angela's business sounds nice, and I think that she could fix the place up and make it look nicer than it does, but I'm not really in favor of having her there as it relates to the traffic and my kids playing outside.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Public hearing is still open. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to the current petition? If you could please step forward, give your name and address.
My name is Marjorie Turner. I live at 906 College Avenue with my husband Richard, and we've been there 30 years. And I just have to reiterate what everybody else said. Love the neighborhood, love the neighbors. Don't really want the dynamics to change with a business, and I do understand what type of business it will be, but it's always been a residential area, and everybody has always been so nice. We did have trouble with the group home a few years back that was sort of scary at times, and you know, that sort of set you off thinking about other things and stuff. So we'd like to keep residential. We moved up there 30 years ago. There's been 7 children in our circle for the probably last 10 or 12 years, and it's nice, like Jim says, the kids are all out playing, you don't worry about, something happening in your yard or something happening to your children when they're out playing in the middle of the circle or they're out riding their bikes and stuff around. So I understand Angela also, wanting that type of neighborhood, but I prefer that it's residential and I would like it to stay residential. Just because I've been there 30 years and it's a wonderful place to live. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Public hearing is still open. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to the current petition? If you could please step forward and give your name and address.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Scott Sweet. I've been in the neighborhood for 67 years. I've been in this house at 821 College Avenue for 26. It's a residential home. It's a residential neighborhood. The home that she is looking to convert to a business is a single family dwelling. It's been a single family dwelling for all these years. And we just don't want to lose track of what this neighborhood is. It's not Main Street. It's not 40. It's not a continuation of any other zoning in the area. This is strictly a residential area that we really want to maintain. Our neighborhood does well being a single family dwelling. We raise our families. And as of yet, I have seen not any problems. So that's basically all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Public hearing is still open. If there is anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the current petition, if you could please step forward and give your name and address.
My name is Ann Holzer.
Hello.
I live at 914 College Avenue. I think perhaps folks who have not lived on that street for a very long time and maybe have not experienced some of the same neighborhood as some of us who've lived there longer have. But ours is the kind of neighborhood that even in the very recent past has gotten together as a neighborhood. We've invited people up and down the street to, usually in the fall, sometimes the weather interferes, but we've done this in the past, invite people to all gather at the top of the circle and bring food, and we talk, we make sure we try and know who our neighbors are. We don't do that probably as frequently as we would like, but generally we know each other. Generally we say hi. So I think the neighborhood itself has a way of being together that's even a little more than us living in individual houses. It feels very much like a neighborhood to me. I hope it does to all the people that live in the area there. I would have some of the same concerns that Rosemary does about the variance. Certainly, I have no feelings against Angela or against this business. I'm sure it's a conscientious and well-run business. But it does seem to me that it will be another small tear in the fabric of this community. And it's not up to us. I know it's up to you guys. I would hope that Rosemary's concerns could be addressed. I would be very very concerned about a continuing variance. I don't want a continuing variance in that neighborhood. If you all decide to grant this, that's kind of out of our hands, but I would just not want a variance, not a continuing variance of that kind for any business. I think it's a fine residential neighborhood. I think that there are lots of other potential places that an office could be. We're aging together. It would be nice to have a young family in that house, but again, we have no control over that either. We don't know who would likely buy that house. But it is a solid neighborhood that we enjoy. I don't quite know that Angela's clients would get the same enjoyment out of the neighborhood that we do. It would be a nice place to be, but I don't know that I find that particularly compelling argument. She would like it for the same reason we do, but we really work at being a community together. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. Hearing is still open. If there's anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to the current petition, if you could please start. If there are no others, we will close public hearing at this time, and we will hear a report from the planning staff.
Joe?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
May I just make a comment? Did I come up with it? Is it out of order?
Pat Foreman wants to make another comment.
That's fine. Pat Foreman?
Go ahead and step on that.
Thank you. I gotta tell you, I love my neighbors, and I do love this neighborhood. And I grew up, like I say, in this neighborhood. I used to ride my bike up and down College Avenue. But I also have to remind my neighbors that we've had businesses in this neighborhood all along. Ed Nicholson ran his construction company out of this neighborhood. We've got Jane Warren has a beauty shop that she runs, and I'm sure there are a lot of other, as we get more and more distance, or not distance, but businesses at home, more and more people are working at home. And I don't see really where this would be such a rippling effect. But I don't see where. Well,
Let's try to address the board.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it seems that, there would be a certain number of people coming and going. They wouldn't be staying there, so there wouldn't really be neighbors. And I can see Angela as being part of the neighborhood, coming up and joining the parties, and her family and children joining the parties. That's all. I just want to remind you that we have had businesses in the neighborhood over the years. It's not, it doesn't just total residential. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman.
Yeah, someone else that wants to speak.
I need clarification on, I've lived on that street for 26 years. I don't remember a beauty shop.
She's on her backyard adjoins us. It's on Fifth Street.
Oh, that's on Fifth Street.
Yeah,
not
her
on
part
College
is.
Avenue. The variance is asked for what the address is on College Avenue. The
809, it's specific to this property.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. And when was Mr. Nicholson's business on College Avenue?
It was not on College Avenue. It was on, again, adjoining the backyards there.
Okay.
But that's been some time ago.
That was a long time ago, but there has been a history of businesses.
And were people living there at the time as well?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah,
So the school is
so it was a business out of a residence.
That's correct.
It was not a residence, that was.
I'm going to ask you,
Yeah.
it's a little tough with Zoom. Everything needs to kind of go through our chair, Joe.
Yeah.
It's okay.
We will.
It happens.
Yeah, we will raise I will raise the question about if there's been businesses or things like that when we hear from the planning staff. if that satisfies everyone. Yes, sir.
I have a question just about procedures or whatever. We found out about this meeting and stuff through a neighbor. Thank goodness we have a good neighbor. But do you notify anybody in the neighborhood?
Yeah, I can clarify that. Per our zoning code, we are required to send adjacent property letters to every property that actually touches that property. And then we're also required, as Kim read in the beginning, to give at least 10 days notice and local publication, which was done in the Western Land.
Western Wayne local? How is Western Wayne local?
That satisfies.
Oh, we could put it
Right.
Terre Haute, whatever.
Well, that's fine. I'm just answering the question. That's
Okay.
what we did to notify everyone.
So how did we get notified?
How did you find out?
Through a neighbor.
I think that's kind of how it works.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be. Yeah, that's just how we've done this for our zoning code.
We follow the legal requirements. Yes.
So what would happen, if she decided to take a partner on, her business girl, and she decided to take a partner on? Does that variance change? Or how would you find that out, or what would you do about that? But she's just asking for variance for herself, or her business. What if she was really busy and decided to take on a partner, or nurse practitioner, or something like that?
Okay, and again, it was my interpretation that as written, without any commitments, if the variance meets the standards of the statute, and if the board decides to approve this, my interpretation would be that without any further commitments, this would not limit the number of partners, it would not limit the type of psychiatrist, medical psychiatry being performed, or psychology being performed. So that it is my interpretation that, and again, I'm following in line with the staff report that was prepared, so I am on board with the staff as far as the recommendation. But if the board decides that a hardship does exist and the other factors are met, and then if the board would want to communicate with the petitioner about any voluntary commitments, those would be recorded with the variance if it is approved. So, and at this point, I really do think we need to kind of limit the questions. Everybody's had a chance and opportunity to speak and give testimony and give evidence. So I worry about prolonging the questions when neighbors are permitted to reach out to petitioners and ask the questions themselves. I worry that we're prolonging this as far as everybody has had an opportunity to speak.
That is correct. We really need to move this along. We need to hear from the planning staff and ask our questions as a board to make sure that everybody gets a fair hearing, and also that we hear all of the things that are involved in this variance hearing. So if we could proceed with the report from the planning staff.
Sure. Petition BZA 20-2020, the petition of Angela Wright, owner, and Ann Liebert, agent, request for approval for a variance of use to allow a psychologist's office in a high-density single-family residential district. Location is 809 College Avenue. Current zoning is high-density family residential R3. The use of the lot is currently for residential. Adjoining zoning is all R3. Notification was sent out to 7 adjacent property owners.
We received one response back for the variance of use in favor of the petition from Patricia Foreman at 815 College Avenue.
Unified Development Ordinance, Richmond Zoning Code allows for type 1 business as an accessory permitted use and type 2 business as an accessory special exception use within R3 zoning district. The primary distinction between type 1 and 2 home businesses is that a type 2 home business permits patrons to visit the home where visitors are prohibited under a type 1 business. However, home businesses must be clearly incidental and secondary to the use of the dwelling unit as a residence. Since the applicant will not permanently reside at the subject property, a variance of use is being requested. The applicant is proposing to operate a one-person small private practice psychological office that will not generate any additional traffic in the neighborhood. The residential location and character is desired for its privacy and discretion. Variance of use must meet the following definition of a hardship. Hardship is a difficulty with regard to one's ability to improve land stemming from the development standards of the UDO, which may or may not be subject to relief by means of variance. In and of themselves, self-imposed situations and claims based on a perceived reduction of or restriction on economic gain shall not be considered hardships. Self-imposed situations include the purchase of land with actual or constructive knowledge that, for reasons other than physical characteristics of the property, the development standards herein will inhibit the desired improvement. Any improvement initiated in violation of the standards of this UDO, any result of land division requiring variance from the development standards of this UDO in order to render the site buildable. The staff consulted with all city departments and utilities to determine any objection based on public health and safety. No objections were raised. Staff recommendation is for denial based on these findings. 1, the approval of the variance will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because the proposed psychologist's office will have at least one pre-scheduled client per hour. The hours of operation will be normal business hours, therefore no new nuisances should be brought about by allowing for a psychologist's office. 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because the operation of the psychologist's office will not negatively affect nearby property or values because the future owner will be present daily and frequently maintain the property. The applicant desires the property to maintain its residential character, which will benefit the business and neighborhood. 3, the need for the variance of use does not rise from some condition peculiar to the property involved. The variance of use arises from the applicant's preference towards a residential setting for the proposed office. There are no physical characteristics of the lot that inhibit the property from being used as a residence. The strict application of the terms of the ordinance will not constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought because the current R3 zoning allows the property to be developed appropriately as a residential lot. The identified hardship stems from the applicant's personal preference for a residential location. 5, the approval does not interfere substantially with the Richmond Comprehensive Plan because the variance of use would not permanently change the underlying zoning of the property from residential to commercial, which abides by the Richmond Comprehensive Plan's future land use map of maintaining this area for residential uses.
Thank you. At this time, I would hear any conversation that we have amongst the board members. Or if we have any questions to the planning staff.
Just have one question, if I may. If
sure.
the petitioner was to reside at this location, then that would be, this home-based business would then be allowed, is that correct?
That is correct, and it would actually be under a special exception. But
which would have to come before the board.
Which would have to come before the board, but you have to be with a a home-based business that's allowed as a special exception must be incidental and secondary to the residents.
So as far as those special exception uses, does the psychology office fall in under that classification in the UDO?
Yes, it would be a type 2 home business that is permitted as a special exception in the R3 zoning district.
I don't have any further questions.
Anyone else have any questions to the planning staff? I believe that answered my question in terms of it would be type 2, correct?
Yes.
With their pending residency. Any other questions to the planning staff at this time? Any conversation amongst the board at this time? I would have to say to my board members, I unfortunately do not see what rises to the level of a hardship in this particular case. Is there anyone else who has another opinion regarding that?
I have to agree with you, Joe. I have a lot of empathy for the service the petitioner provides. But based on our guidance and our rules for how we have to look at this, I have to set that aside and go with what we told you.
There's any other discussion off the board? Hearing none, I hear a motion for BZA 20.
I'll make a motion to approve BZA 20-2020 based on the finding of facts with no written commitment.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second? I have a motion and a second. Will you please call the?
Jeff Cook,
No.
Jerry Harlan Davis,
No.
Aaron Roberts,
No.
Joe Green.
No. And with that, the petition fails, and unfortunately, we weren't able to approve that this time. Hear from the legal staff.
Yes, thank you, Joe. The petition does have 30 days in accordance with Indiana Code 36-7-4 to appeal this decision, this denial, to the Wayne County Superior or Circuit Courts. And again, that is 30 days in accordance with 36-794. And so at this time, the board can move on to the next piece of business.
Thank you very much. At this time, we don't have any other business. I will alert the public that the filing deadline for the October BZA hearing was September the 10th of 2020, and that hearing will be held on Thursday, October the 8th, 2020.
Yeah, Joe, that date's already passed, so nobody applied, so we will not be meeting in October.
Okay. All right. So there will be no October BZA hearing. Is there any other business that the board would like to present, or the planning staff or legal staff?
I will just say, I believe October 8th is the deadline to get on November.
For the November hearing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Do I have the date for that? Sorry, I'm looking.
Yeah. 12th.
Okay. Thank you. So the filing deadline for the November BZA hearing will be October the 8th. Is there any other business that needs to be brought up? And hearing none.
I'd make a motion to dismiss.
I have a motion and a second. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Maria. You want to put that?
Yeah.